can't hear you.
All righty, welcome to another episode of the Barter Black Podcast. I am Nicole Murphy, founder and CEO of Barter Black, and we do this podcast every month, the first and third Tuesday of every month, to highlight our members and the amazing things that they are doing. And we are going to have a great conversation tonight. It's one of the topics that I love. Never wanted to go that route as far as, my career, but I love legal talk. So I cannot wait. So let's welcome. Hi, Liscah, how are you?
I'm pretty good. How are you? Thank you for having me.
I am amazing. Thank you for scheduling this podcast. This is one of the things that people need to learn about, people need to know about. And I think sometimes we just don't have the resources to actually maybe reach out to the people that we need to talk to. So I think my first question, let's just jump right on in. Who are you and how did you become an attorney?
Well, my name is Liscah Isaboke. I am a managing partner at Isaboke Law Firm. I have been running this firm since 2021. We'll be hitting our 5-year mark on February 4th. So less than a month now. We'll be at 5 years. And ever since we started, we were working with entrepreneurs and small business owners doing contract review, um, trademark application filing, and now we're venturing into litigation for small businesses, like business litigation, civil litigation, which is amazing. I've grown my team to about 5 members now, which is super exciting. How did I become an attorney? I think I've always been very sure of myself and what I wanted to do. So even when I was young, I went into the guidance counselor office and they asked me, "What do you want to do?" And I told them I am going to become a lawyer. And she was very impressed because I didn't say I want to be. I just said I'm going to be a lawyer. And even when I was an undergrad, I was just harping with the fact that I can graduate and just start a simple job, but I just knew that's not what I wanted to do. So I just decided to just keep going and just go to law school. So here we are. It was not an easy journey, especially for people who look like me, which is why I love working with people who look like me, because I know what representation looks like and how it can affect people and how it affected me on my journey to become an attorney, because I didn't see that many people that look like me. And the ones that I did see, some of them were even discouraging, like, "Oh, this is too hard. People don't pass and you might not do it." But I want to be the person to encourage and be that representation though. So if you see that I can do it, you can do it too.
Yeah, I love that you mentioned representation because I feel like even though there are, black and brown attorneys, we might not see them as much as we see other attorneys. So it's important that we see each other in these type of fields. So me look like our first.
Just,
Am I
just a little
back?
bit. Yes.
Okay. I was like, wait a minute. So I took a look at your website, and I have worked with her several times already, but I took a look at your website because I was doing this interview. And one of the things that I noticed is that you say where legal expertise meets business strategy. So, what actually does that look like in your practice?
I've always been business minded. So outside of me being an attorney, right, I have to run a law firm. So that includes having a business mind or just being more so an entrepreneur. So all of my clients are business owners, and the attorneys that work for me, we have to think outside of the legal aspect. We have to think of it with a business mind. Like, what does this look like if I was the CEO or the COO of this company? So we think of everything more of like in a strategic sense, because when people come to us, they usually come to us for like, "Hey, I want you to review this contract or revise this contract for me or file this application for me." But then we also think, all right, what does it look like for your business 5 years from now? So we try to put those legal steps into their business to where they're structured to scale. So that's where we bring the legal strategy into the business.
Okay. And what's something about your journey as an attorney that most people don't see? or hear, attorneys talk about?
Um, that's a very good question because I feel like a lot of, even though I don't like the shows depicting how the legal system because it's not accurate. I do feel like people know a lot from the legal system from watching like Suits or Law and Order. So what is depicted is seen a lot. But as far as being a law firm owner, maybe like all of the back end, like marketing, bookkeeping, finances, but also client retention and client experience. So probably that the most. I would say client retention and client experience. So people, just because you're an attorney doesn't mean that you have clients knocking down your door every single day. You do have to provide an experience for clients to want to come back, whether that is ease of working with you, that it's easy to onboard a client, it's easy for clients to understand your fees and your processes and communication, like how fast you communicate with your clients. So I think that's the biggest thing that people probably don't look at when it comes to like being an attorney. You think, okay, well, you go to court, or you do X, Y, and Z for me, and that's it. But you want to keep the people that come to you happy.
Yeah, and you want them to know that, they can come to you. I know sometimes it is hard to explain what your issues are, or, it's like, oh, I need somebody all up in my business.
And I
Um,
think this is very hard. Yeah.
yeah. So, okay. So, from your experience, let's talk about entrepreneurship a little bit. From your experience, what are the most common legal mistakes you see founders make in the first 2 years?
Well, that's a very good one. Not having contracts in place. I would say first and foremost, not having contracts in place. So, for example, I want you to create my logo. I want you to do my website. I'm going to go into business with this person. So you might start an LLC, and okay, we file the paperwork, and it's me and my sister, or me and my husband on this in this business, but we don't have an operating agreement that governs the terms of what happens if somebody wants to sell, or somebody wants to transfer, or if just things go left. Do we file in court? And so usually, if you don't have an operating agreement, obviously it's going to default to your state rules and your state laws, and every state is different. It's in those rules the same way, like if you get married without a prenup. So now the state determines how your marriage is going to end and how you're going to split up things. And it's the same way with a business. So I think contracts is the main thing that I would say number one that people don't do, even when you're working with anybody else. If you're going to create a website for me, I retain all of everything is mine. The same thing with the logo. If you create it for me, because in copyright law, anything that you create automatically you own. So even as the editor or the photographer or whoever is working on your stuff, they own the copyright. But if you have a contract, it automatically transfers to you upon payment, upon delivery. So some people don't realize that. So once they start trying to trademark, and it really comes into times where like you want to trademark your logo, but you don't even own it. And in that agreement that you ask them to create a logo for you and they own it, it's like, okay, you can only use it for this limited purpose. But some people's agreements might say, well, you can't copyright, or you can't trademark this because it's my art.
Yeah.
And let me think of another mistake. Confidentiality agreements, which is another contract as well. So before you divulge your project or whatever it may be, having confidentiality agreements between the people that you're speaking to, because some people get really excited about their business ideas and they go run and tell a friend and be like, hey, I think I want to start a hair salon that you can get your nails done at, and blah blah blah. Next thing you know, your friend opened it up. So stuff like that.
That, I mean, what you listed off it's a lot, but it's things that we need to know. And in particular, what hit was about the logo, and also, your headshots that you take. As business owners, we're taking headshots all the time, so those do not belong to you. I was actually working with, and I can't remember which publication it was, but the photos that I sent, they needed who they belonged to. It did not belong to me unless I made that agreement, and I did not make that. I have made that agreement with some, but I did not make an agreement with those particular photos. But I never thought about the logo thing, so that That's very interesting, and we have to make sure that we are including legal in our business. And sometimes it's the last thing that we include because we're uh,
Intimidated. So
yeah, we reached a problem and we're like, oh my goodness, what do I do now? Um, so because a lot of entrepreneurs delay legal work, it becomes overwhelming and it definitely becomes expensive as well. So what usually happens besides that when we wait too long to bring an attorney into our business?
besides financial, um, statutes of limitations. So that's one of the big ones. So breach of contract here in North Carolina is 3 years from the date of breach. So if someone has breached a contract and you're like, oh, I don't want to deal with this now, and then you come back in 3 years and say, well, that person really like they did me dirty. Let me see if I can start talking to lawyers. I got some money now. I want to sue them, and the statute of limitations has run and we couldn't even file a cause of action or a complaint against this person because the statute of limitations has run. So that you risk running that. And then, defense arguments, you can make a few defensive arguments by saying, they didn't say anything then, why are they bringing something up now, just because of like time is of the essence. I believe with anything. So I think that's the biggest thing, which is why we're big advocates of saying be proactive rather than reactive. Although legal can be intimidating to people, and it may sound like a mouthful, I really do try to speak in layman's terms and not too much legalese so people understand where I'm coming from and where I use examples of hair salon and logos, and because I know this is what people can understand instead of using certain terms like your intellectual property, which people more so understand now. But just by saying the photographs people take of you is owned by a photographer, although that's the photographer's intellectual property, um, because they own that, or they own that copyright. Yeah, that's what I would say. Is just be more so proactive than reactive. So once you think about it, and I believe artificial intelligence is really helpful to people now. Although I don't believe it will replace attorneys, I do believe it helps people kind of give a foundation or some structure as to how I should move forward and what I should ask an attorney, instead of just like, hey, I don't know what I'm doing at all. And we've seen that shift 100%. In the past 2 years, we've seen this shift of people just saying like, hey, I don't know what I need, and like a base level understanding of what's going on with the situation, to more of a more intricate, like nuance, like this is exactly what I need. I just need you to help me fill this gap. And I think that's amazing.
Okay, so I was actually leading into AI and all of those things because especially when you're an earlier entrepreneur, you're trying to find ways to save money and templates, and AI is probably the go-to. So, what do you say we are risking if we depend solely on AI and templates that we find online?
So you're risking AI not being accurate for your situation, or you're risking using a template that was written for the other party. And secondly, recent case law. So cases change on like enforceability of certain clauses due to how judges rule in recent. So like if there's a breach of contract case that goes to the federal circuit or the Supreme Court of your state, and they ruled a certain way on how we will deal with termination, or how we'll deal with non-compete clauses, or how we'll deal with scope, and how we use certain language and how certain things are written. You may have an outdated template, one, or two, again, like I said, it might be written for the other party. So some of those terms may not be favorable to you. You might want to put a term in there that if this does go to litigation, that the prevailing party pays the other party's attorney's fees. And some things, AI might not catch unless you're, prompting it 24/7, asking it certain questions, and you have the time. So there's a luxury in having obviously a private attorney who has been there, done that, and obviously has the time and will tell you what works best for your situation. So those are the main things that I would say. And I said that it's irreplaceable because I've seen a lot of contracts. That's what we've seen more recent. People will come and bring us contracts and they'll say, oh, I wrote this and it's obvious AI wrote it. I just want you to look at it really quickly and tell me what you think. And they're not that good. I don't want to, disparage artificial intelligence, but they're really not that good at all compared to what we draft or, what we see as standard in the legal field.
Yeah, I can only imagine you looking at the contracts and you're like, yeah, you type something in AI and
yeah, you just
stuff popped up.
draft me an independent contract agreement, and they're really bad. Or just like, okay, like some of it's like one line or two lines, but some things you have to get really nuanced, especially when you come down to certain situations or you're in a certain industry where people sue a lot. With like if you're a contractor, or you're a car dealership, you cannot just type in and get a really basic template. You need something that's honed in on what goes on and what's current in your industry.
Yeah, that's interesting. Okay, so I want to talk about IP, intellectual property, a little bit, but can you explain um in I don't know, as detailed but as simple as possible the difference between trademark and copyright and patent and trade secrets? I don't know if there's anything else I'm missing.
Yeah, that's the top four.
Okay.
So we'll start with trademarks. So trademarks are things like logos, slogans, and words like your business name, yeah, or just other designs too. Like if you're selling something, designs. But other things are trademarkable, but they're very rare. So Tiffany Blue has been trademarked, and I believe there's a ding. Maybe the Nike ding has been trademarked as well, but that's very rare because you can trademark a sound and you can also trademark a color, but it has to be very. You have to be able to prove that this is trademarkable. Like again, like Tiffany Blue, like people noticeably know that's the Tiffany Blue. So that's what that protects. So now moving to copyrights, copyrights protect things like books, poems, blogs. We see that a lot. Um, Photos. Sorry, I don't know why I lost. So photos, and you can, like, if you do a lot of photography, you can copyright, I believe, like 700 photos at once. So that's where you see those cases where celebrities will post photos of themselves and it was taken by Getty Images or it was taken by a photographer, and they will sue that celebrity. Like, this is a photo of myself. Why am I being sued? But and that's another reason why in America, at least, when you get recorded in public, it's allowed, and anything that you record on your own is your copyright immediately upon creation, and that's in U.S. copyright law. So patents protect more so things like the functionality of things, and like more so inventions. So the functionality of like this mirror and how it works, you would have somebody draw how this attaches to this mirror and then it attaches to the stand, and you patent this in general, so somebody cannot remanufacture this in itself. So you couldn't trademark this. If you were to trademark this, it would be, or a picture of it would be a copyright. A drawing of it could be trademarked. However, the functionality of this would have to be drawn out. Somebody would draw that out, and then explain how the apparatuses connect with each other and how they work and how they function, and that's patentable. Moving to trade secrets. So trade secrets are more things like client processes, systems, client information, or just even your handbook, employee handbooks, and how you run your business. And if some businesses, they run their businesses really, really well. There's a reason why they make $500,000 to $2 to $3 million a year, is because how they run their business, or what they know, and what makes that business so good. Down to, and Coca-Cola, that's a trademark secret. KFC spices and seasonings, what they use to season their food, that's a trade secret, because that's essential to their business. And it's completely different because you can't get a copyright for it, you can't get a patent for it or a trademark for it. You just have to protect it. So once it's divulged into the public, it's no longer a trade secret. So you protect trade secrets, things like NDAs. If you have certain rules, clauses, so where people have to destroy things. So if you're no longer an employee, you have to destroy things. That you can do internal audits of people's systems and see if people still have certain things on their systems. And you just really contain who you divulge that information to. And that's what makes it a trade secret, plain and simple. So sometimes, trade secrets are kept between the executive office. So maybe just the CEO, CFO, COO, those are the only ones that know certain things. And that's just the best way to keep things under wraps.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you for that explanation. I hear people always say it the wrong way. So I wanted to make sure before we discussed it that we figured out what it actually was. So when would you say that it's the perfect time for a founder to start thinking about intellectual property?
Great question. Great question. I say when you're married to it, because some people change their name. They may start a business, because you can start your business and you just know what you're doing. Whether, let's say, you're selling food and you want to sell that food and it's working out for you and you're making money. However, you might not be married to the name, but if you're married to a logo, if you're married to that name, then yes, 100% file the trademark for it. Now, when we talk about copyrights, I would say if you feel like this is something that might be stolen, so people who sell courses, if you're already selling a course, I say definitely have an attorney file a copyright for you for the course. Or if you run a very popular blog, and it doesn't have to be popular, it can get popular. So if you want to copyright that. And the reason why I say that is because the only way you can go after someone in copyright law for copyright infringement is if you have a filed copyright for the work. Not to say that you can put it out and then somebody might infringe on it, but you still would have to go in, file the copyright for it, and then file suit. So if you are proactive on filing these copyrights, then you can file suit immediately. You won't have to go through that process on the back end. Patents, I would say that's something that patents are a little bit different, because it's your invention, right? So a lot of people that do file patents have NDAs already before they're going up to people, especially manufacturers. If you have somebody manufacturing a product that you want to sell or you want to create and put in the marketplace, you speak to them under NDA. So before you divulge it into the public, when it comes to patents, I would say file the patent. But if you've been speaking to manufacturers and you're getting prototypes, and they're all under non-disclosure agreements, then you should be okay. But once you're ready to divulge it to the public, for sure, have a filed patent when it comes to inventions. But you should always be thinking about it from the beginning, from opening your business and figuring out, what do I want my business name to be, not only this year, but 5 years from now, 10 years from now. And
Yeah.
I'd say being married to it, because if you change your name, you have to renew every 5 years. You have to renew your name, and if you're no longer using it, then you can lose your trademark status.
I love that you said be married to it, because that's a commitment, right?
Yeah.
That's a major commitment. I never heard anyone say that. So that's a good point of reference. If this is what I want really in my life, I'm going to file some type of intellectual property filing. So what would you say are there any misconceptions people have about intellectual property, whether trademarks, copyrights, patents, all of those things that you wish would disappear? I wish people stop saying that.
Well, misconstruing, obviously, I know you said that from earlier. Misconstruing, some people will be like, yeah, I have this new fashion line and I want to patent it. And it's funny, but I think that's not that big of a deal. It doesn't really bother me much. It's all about education. But as far as IP goes, what would go away? Well, people using the registered symbol before actually having a registered trademark. Some people do that, and it could be seen as deceptive to the USPTO, or to any trademark office in itself, internationally. So if you do end up filing the trademark for that, then you may lose it, because you're already deceiving the public, by making them think that you have a registered trademark for whatever that name may be. That's something that we have to tell some of our clients. When we look through their websites or their social media, we'll see they're using the symbol and they think it's protecting them, but it's not. And I really think I do also think it's deceptive too as well for even other people who may want to use that name. And I do think that's probably the main thing that would stop. But outside of that, just having it is not going to deter people from still trying to infringe on your trademark. So just because you have the filed trademark, you do need to continue to monitor for other people filing applications under the same or similar name, to file oppositions for it. And also, you still have to send cease and desist letters. So you have to really just still be on top of active monitoring of your mark. Although, it's a huge deterrence to people still try it. And you know and it's not like the work is done there. But once you have it filed, you have a bona fide case of infringement though.
Awesome, awesome, and thank you for that. So I want to move on a little bit to just basic legal, and if there is a difference between basic legal setup and strategic legal protection, and at what point does a business shift, or should they just jump right on in?
um I would say there's strategic ways to do things, which might take a little bit more capital, because you might just be building your portfolio a little bit more when it comes to intellectual property, of course. So there's strategic ways to get certain trademarks. If you start with maybe a design mark before you file the word mark, especially if you feel like you might not get it from the beginning. That's just one of the strategies that we use. Outside of that, just basic legal is just having certain basic things in place. It's like your basic agreement. So if you serve clients, like a client services agreement, a consulting agreement, you're obviously with your non-disclosure agreements, your independent contractor agreements. Anybody that's working for you should sign an agreement for confidentiality, of course, non-competes, non-solicitation, non-disparagement. um, so yeah, there's a difference between basic and then obviously when you want to get to more strategic is, and where I say you need a little bit more capital, is because you may just have to file more trademarks, or file some copyrights for all of your work if you want to be protected in every aspect. The same thing with like getting certain domain names, and if you want to be competitive, and just kind of thinking about like, okay, what a competitor may do, and just getting ahead of that.
Yeah, those are really good points. Trying to think ahead, not only in your business, but what competitors will do. And especially, I feel like if you look at different or big companies, big brands, they have trademarks and it just galore. Like it is insane.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's not cheap. So you definitely need the capital when you want to start thinking strategically and just start thinking about how you want your business to grow. Because the same way, once you launch your business idea, somebody might take that and try to tweak it, and you might want to, combat that by saying, okay, well, they can't take this as well because that's where I want to take my business in 2 years.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So I hear, and I'm sure you hear, and I'm sure anyone who's looking or watching us hear, people talk about 6 and 7 figure entrepreneurs. Are there legal foundations that must be put in place before you can even reach that point?
I wouldn't say must, because some people, sell certain products and they reach six figures easily. Because I don't think it's hard to hit 100,000. To hit seven figures though, you do have to be a different kind of an individual and have a different kind of business model. You do need to have systems in place, which I do think legal has a big part of it, because um, when you're making a certain kind of money now, you become a target for lawsuits. And also you have to have certain things in place, like your human resources department, especially when you have your employees. So your employee agreements, that's one of the biggest thing that you have to look at, because now I don't believe anybody's making 6 or 7 figures by themselves. Like, you would have to have a team. I don't think I've seen it unless you're doing certain things like streaming, or something very basic. I'm not saying basic as in like there's no merit to it, but I would say for sure your employee agreements, because you make that certain amount of money. Now you start relying on people very heavily. So your payroll has to be in place. Um, and if there's something in there and you don't abide by it, you could risk a lawsuit and you could really lose your business just by making a mistake with how you treat your employees and how you run your business. So I think that's the biggest thing. And I think everything really does go down to contracts. I think contracts are really the backbone of every business. Agreements.
Yeah, I know when I first started Barter Black, one of the basic things was an NDA. And I was just so nervous to ask people to sign them. And now I'm like, you know what? I've
Yeah,
been through it. Look now. You
yeah,
gotta
yeah. You see,
put
finance
something.
will work together. And
Yeah.
agreements protect both parties. It's not one sided. If I ask you to sign an agreement with me with my client agreements, I'm telling you that I'm going to do this for you, and if I don't do it, you can sue me. And I sign it as well, and so do you. So if you come across someone that says I'm not going to sign that, then you don't want to do business with them. You don't want them to be your employee. You don't want to work with them at all, because obviously they might there's some type of deceit that they might be planning for you in that aspect. So I never really understood why people didn't want to sign certain agreements. I get certain clauses if it might not be favorable to you. Okay, yes, I understand that, because I've seen some contracts that have some egregious clauses.
Can you share?
Um, I would say my entertainment law agreements. So, and we always hear about the 360 deals and stuff like that. So I had a sports contract, a sports agreement. It was a sponsorship agreement where someone said that, or they wanted her name, image, and likeness in perpetuity, but also after death, but also anybody connected to her, like her family members and her friends. They wanted, um, the the rights to all of their name, image, and likeness. And there was and then the fee was very low. It was insane. But I think that clause right there, it was crazy. But anything that somebody asks for in perpetuity can be a little bit much, unless you're talking about confidentiality, which confidentiality still is normally about between 24 to 36 months. But if you're talking about trade secrets can be in perpetuity. But yes, that was probably one of the most egregious. I've seen more, but I can't think of any right now.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting. Can you talk a little bit more about the sports entertainment industry and how you work in that industry, and who, if anyone is watching, if they are in these particular positions, that they can contact you?
So my first client was actually a producer who was working with a big artist, who's in the music industry now. Um, his cousin called me because we were friends from high school. He was like, "Hey, I know you're a lawyer, and my cousin has a contract. He's a producer. He made beats for this certain artist, and I before he signs this agreement, I want you to look at it." So that was my first ever client. And I looked at it, and that was one of that's what I'm saying. The entertainment law contracts are insane. So they were going to pay him $1. So in contracts, you need some sort of consideration, and consideration can be $1. So you need an offer, acceptance, and consideration. That makes a valid contract. That's basic contract law. That's like contract 101. I just gave you law school 101. But you need an offer, acceptance, and consideration. And consideration can be that $1. So I reviewed the agreement. I was able to negotiate him for far much more, like a lot more, and change a few of the terms in the agreement. We redlined it and sent it back. So that's how we got started doing it. Well, not that's how we got started with our business, right? Um, so outside of that, yeah, we have a lot of producer clients, and it's really down to basic negotiating and basic contracts. So you negotiate what the royalties will be, what your rights will be, how you'll get the credits on whatever it may be, right? Whether it be a film, whether it be a song, a music video, or you as the producer, right? What kind of royalties and what kind of rights are you going to get to this music? And distribution agreements as well. So it's still in the same realm as contract law, and I think it's fun. I think it's very cool working with certain artists, and seeing certain things behind the scenes. But I think a lot of artists are easy prey because of advances. And some people, and it's good when people come to us and they say, well, this person, they're willing to pay me 30,000 or 50,000, is going to change my life right now, but they don't realize that they want 5 albums and you still have to pay them back. Time, you have to pay them back, and you have to get the streams, and you have to do this, that, and the third, and you won't even see any of your money probably until later on, and you might not even be quote unquote hot then. So there's a lot of things there that you have to be really wary about when it comes to like starting to work with people and getting into the studio, or just working with in the music industry in general. It's a very predatory lane, I would say, especially for young artists, or just people who don't have that much money and they have the time. So now they're paying you for your time. Now you're in the studio 24/7. And these are things that you really have to think about. And if someone is coming to you and they're presenting you these kind of terms, your best interests are not at heart. And you may have to look for, another label or another company or another management company to work with.
Awesome. That's really interesting. So while we're on this topic, can you list out the type of or the industries that you work in?
Oh, a lot, honestly, and it's super fun. So, education, music, film, software as a service. We work with a lot of software as a service companies, SaaS companies, consulting companies. So we have some AI creators, which is cool. Content creators as well. We do have a few content creators. So that's one of the things that we do a lot too, is brand sponsorship agreements. We have a few creators who have retainer agreements with us, whereby anytime they get a brand sponsorship agreement, they send it over to us to kind of just review it really quick. And just to make sure that we can negotiate whatever terms that they usually like in there. And they just like having, counsel going back and forth with the other company too, which is really, really nice. So we do have a few content creators, but we work with small to medium sized businesses. So all of our clients are pretty vast and wide, you know, and it's really, really cool, especially when it comes down to trademarks, right? So it's not too nuanced when it comes to trademarks as well. So we have a cigar company we filed a trademark for. Yeah, like I said, we have an AI creator who's doing like AI courses, which is really, really cool. It's a few different things that we have. Nurses, and NEMT businesses, home health aid. What else? Traveling nurses, consulting. It's a lot of stuff. We work with a lot of different companies.
That's interesting. I did, I didn't it didn't correlate to me that it even though I know it could be that vast, it didn't correlate to me that you particularly work with a vast number of industries, which probably keeps it exciting because you're always
No, it does. It does. It does. And we work with the same kind of businesses often. So, since we've been doing this for about 5 years, I can only imagine what it will look like in 10 years, like what else we can offer these businesses, because we've seen so much already. But we do see a lot of the same or similar businesses coming to us, like consulting, SaaS businesses, entertainment, like our producers, our content creators.
awesome. Awesome. So I know one of the things, and I'm kind of going off track of my questions because I just thought about this, but um, one of the things that I feel like we why we avoid attorneys, whether it's business, trademark, all those things, is because of the cost. So do people work with you on retainer? Can they do it one-offs? They can come and get a contract if they needed to. Is there some type of commitment? How does all of that work when they come to your law firm?
That's a great question. So we work on a more modern fee. model versus a traditional model, which is, more traditionally everything is hourly. We bill you, and we send you this huge bill, after we build all of these hours and we worked for you. So the majority of our services are a fixed fee. So you'll know exactly what you're paying up front, and then you know exactly what's included in this fixed fee. And obviously it comes with attorney client meetings. It comes with certain revisions when it comes to contracts. It comes with our trademark filing services, come with, depending on what package you choose, non-substantive office action responses and office action responses. So we've come to this point. I think we started this in 2023, when we realized it was easier for us and the client, instead of like saying, okay, well, this is how much we worked on it, this is the hours that we're going to bill you. And then I've also seen other law firms kind of adopt this model, and I tried it out, and I love it. I love this new flat fee model. However, but we do have a fractional counsel model that you can, give us a retainer, and then we build towards that retainer, based on the volume of agreements that you're seeing, or the volume of IP protection you want, how much you want to file, what you want to do. But those are more so for our medium to larger size businesses that have more going on. Outside of that, litigation we can't have as a fixed fee. It has to be hourly, because it's so, you don't know what might happen. You might settle after the first demand letter. Or you could take it all the way to trial. So, and also with litigation, you have to do a lot of research when it comes to case law. So case law is always changing, which is why, again, when it comes to AI, like AI can't replace a lawyer that's going into in the courthouse, because things change all the time. And if you're reading Lawyers Weekly, or you're reading, your local newspaper about, or like the stuff that we get as lawyers from the bar about, the new cases, and our continuing legal education, what we need to maintain our law license. These are things that we have to be updated with. And with that, we use that when it comes to litigation. You just have to read a lot. You have to file these complaints, speak to judges, speak to DAs, speak to the other party, and all of that. You can't package that into a fixed fee. It's just impossible. And some opposing parties are just a huge headache to deal with, and they'll drag things along. Especially especially if the other party has the money for it, they don't mind, and we don't mind either. We don't mind.
I know it gets expensive, and it is a lot of work. So how do you think, going back to contracts and trademarks, how do you see contracts, trademarks, and any other type of legal things impact a company's ability to raise money and partner with people strategically?
Oh, that's so good. That's so good. Well, I'll use myself as an example, for raising money. So I think Amazon had a grant, that you had to do questions for. And this is before I got my trademarks for my business. And one of the questions was like, do you have a filed trademark? What is it, and what's the serial number? So that right there was just like, I think it tells people, if somebody's going to give you money, if you're going to raise money, if you're going to go to investors, and you go do your first seed round of raising funding, and they ask you like, are you? It shows that you're serious about this, right? Do you have the intellectual property? Do you have the filed trademarks in this? And an investor probably won't want to invest in your business if there's a possibility that a competitor or somebody else can swoop in and file the trademark for it, or they don't even want to do the work to go look and see if it's there already. If they see that you have filed a trademark for it, and they can see that, then that gives them a little bit more confidence. So I feel like it can hinder you by not having that in place if you're looking to raise funding through grants or private funding. I don't remember the second question.
Uh-oh. It was about raising money and partnering.
Okay, yes, partnering with other people. I think just having your IP in place and having good contracts in place just makes you look like a professional. I think people take you more seriously, and people give you a little bit more respect on that end. Even me, if I want to work with people and have certain strategic partnerships, I appreciate that they took the time and effort into taking their business seriously. And it's not a business that's just going to be here today, gone tomorrow. This is most likely somebody that's in it for the long run. At least for me, that's my thought process when it comes to partnerships. But if you're also thinking about if you're thinking about contract agreements and partnership agreements and how somebody can use another person's intellectual property. So let's say we partnered and we would have a partnership agreements about how I can use Barter Black in my emails or when I speak to my clients or on my social media. We could agree to those things, and also we can agree to like non-disparagement. Like you can't associate Isaboke Law Firm with anything that's disparaging or anything negative, or so those are certain things that you can put in partnership agreements too, if that's what you're thinking of as well.
Awesome, awesome. Because I know I hear a lot of people want to raise money. There's a lot that goes into that, and a lot of people want to partner. There's a lot that goes into that.
Mhm.
So we talked about AI, and you work in tech and AI governance. What should founders building digital platforms be thinking about right now when it comes to legal and all of those things?
Um, I would say if you want to protect your intellectual property working in sandbox environments, some of these platforms, if you're not paying for them, they will use your information to train the model. So you're inherently giving out your IP without knowing it. If you're saying, okay, let me submit my entire business plan into here and tell me where I need to tweak it, you kind of just gave away your intellectual property without knowing it. So some of these platforms like OpenAI have contracts where you can get a sandbox environment where your business, like everybody, so for us, if we use AI, we use AI in a sandbox environment through LexisNexis or Westlaw. So they provide a space where it doesn't train anything, and whatever you use, it doesn't go anywhere but there, right? It's just giving you output more so and not taking anything as far as input goes, which is a little bit more expensive, but that's something that you have to think about when you have a bigger company. You have employees that's working with customers or that's client facing, and they may be putting those clients' information into ChatGPT, and it might be a free model, but that client entrusted you with their information, and you have to really be careful what your employees or your contractors or affiliates are doing with their information. That's definitely something that you have to think about. Outside of that, I really do like artificial intelligence, and I think it's not going anywhere anytime soon, and it's only getting better. So you have to kind of learn how to work with it, not work against it. It's some people are against artificial intelligence, and I understand. Like I hear about the data centers, but if we're us as Black people, if we're not using it, then other people are, and they could use it against us. So it's better that we become more knowledgeable about it, and then kind of just learn how to use it more. Um, yeah. So what we help people do is kind of learn how to create those agreements and train employees on how to use artificial intelligence, on how to not divulge information, and you should constantly be doing training with your employees, especially if you don't have an enterprise contract with OpenAI or Claude or Gemini, to just be really, really careful. And you can also disable it from your networks, to not allow people to use it, because I know some people will try to use it anyway. I believe it's disabled in certain places like the hospital. So hospitals have disabled access to ChatGPT and some of these other AIs because of HIPAA. HIPAA is like a very huge, and I said I work with nurses too, home health aides. You should not be inputting a patient's information into ChatGPT or taking a picture of their chart and submitting it into ChatGPT. We're seeing these cases, and that's a huge lawsuit for hospitals. You have to be really careful.
That's good. It's helpful, but you have to, protect yourself and others when using it. Very interesting. Okay, let's move on to founder mindset and leadership. What's one mindset shift that entrepreneurs need to make when it comes to legal support?
Um, what's one mindset shift that entrepreneurs need to make when it comes to legal? I would say that it's more of an investment than it is a burden. Some people might just look at it as intimidating, like, oh, so the lawyers, they just want my money, or I could just put it in the chat GPT. Chat GPT will give me something, but no, it's an investment. It truly is, and it gives you more of a peace of mind than anything. Because even if you do use a template online, or if you Google a few things and patch something together, I don't think you'll get the same peace of mind as you do when you work with a team of attorneys, in a law firm that can reassure you that this contract that I'm putting in front of my clients, or that I'm putting in front of my general or subcontractors, this will protect me in an event of a breach, in an event that something goes wrong. I think that it should just be more so viewed as an investment.
Okay. All right, good. So looking back, this is personal. Looking back, what advice would you give your earlier self about building your law firm?
Systems. Systems. And I think any entrepreneur will probably be like, yes, 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 when it comes to that. So once that ding comes into your head, and when you start realizing like the redundancy in the work that you do, like I do the same thing, or we do the same thing when we onboard a client. Like we send the client agreement, we offboard a client, or just certain things are very redundant, and you're doing these repetitive tasks. If you have a system that's doing that for you, obviously you have more time to focus on the client, one. And then, if again, when you think about billables, that's non-billable work. So you want to be doing less billable work when it comes to a law firm. You want to be doing more billable work, right, and less non-billable work. But also, if you have a system in place that's going to be sending out, case updates, or sending out information, or that automatically, like as soon as the lead comes in, everything is populated onto your CRM. So that's what we have now. But back then, I would have either a phone call or an email come in, and now I have to input all of that information into my CRM. And then from there, but now everything is automated through like our automations, with Zapier and M8N. Now everything kind of just is smooth sailing. So we can focus on marketing, we can focus on our clients, and we can focus on really increasing that client experience. So system.
Yeah, I agree. And I know that in entrepreneurship, most people are like, oh my goodness, it takes so much time. But trust me, when it's done, you are set.
Yes, automations. Yes.
Yeah, I'm addicted. So,
Yes, because you want to figure out, how can I save time?
yes, I don't want to do this. And it has to be those repetitive things. It's like, okay, something has to give. All right. So, what is one sentence every founder needs to hear about protecting their business?
Oh, on the spot like that. um, about protecting their business, I would say what I said earlier. If I would rather be proactive than reactive when it comes to dealing with hard situations in my business. So that essentially just means that, like, I thought about this before, and I thought about what protections I could put in place, before I would have to react to a situation. That's more so reactive, like, okay, somebody's copying me. What do I do about it? I need to file a trademark. But if you were proactive about it, then there you go. You've already, that's something you've already protected yourself. So now you already you have leverage. You already have the upper hand. And then even with contracts, now we had a handshake agreement with someone. This person, she or he said that they were going to pay me this much, or they said they were going to do the work, and they ended up never doing it, or they just ghosted me. And if you had a contract in place, now you can file suit for breach of contract. But if you're being reactive to the situation, and then you come to someone like me and I ask you, okay, was there a contract in place? No, but I have text messages. And now that you might be going into the realm of hearsay, and that some judges might not even take that.
Interesting, interesting. So this kind of maybe leads into my almost final question. For someone listening right now who knows they've been putting off the legal stuff, what's the first step that they should do this week?
The first step I would say is just figure out, what you believe that you're putting behind. And secondly, schedule a consultation with us. Our consultations are 250 for 30 minutes. And in that consultation, we kind of deep dive into where you are in your business. And even though you might think that there's one issue that might be going on, and this is what I'm coming in for, as we have that conversation, we might be able to kind of pull out other things that you might be missing through the questions that we asked you. Um, and from there, we'll send you a proposal and let you know we believe that this is one, two, and three that you need to do with your business. And then you'll kind of get an idea of how much it will cost you one. And then that 250 doesn't go to waste. It'll go towards the legal services that you may need. So I would say that, especially if you have the funds, or tax season is coming up as well, I would say definitely make that investment. And some people, surprisingly, they think they don't have it, but they do. They just spend it on other things. You might not have it for this, but you might think you won't not have it for this, but you do if you want to buy new bundles, or you want to eat out on DoorDash. It adds up. So if you can sacrifice in certain areas, or if you can budget for it, then please do. And I'm really not saying it as a joke. I really think, there's money for it. You just have to. It just has to be a priority for you.
Totally agree. One of the things that I mentioned to my friends maybe a month or two ago, sis, I can't do anything right now. My business right now is sucking everything out of me, and I need to focus on this right now. So yeah, you have to make sacrifices, and especially when it comes to legal. So we have to start looking at it as an investment.
Mhm.
And I like how you mentioned that trademarks and copyrights and all of those things; those are assets in your business. Um,
Yeah.
so they add to the value of your business. So I love that. Um, Anything else you want to mention to everyone? My last question is, where can people connect with you and learn more about your services and get the protection that they need right away? So, last words, and then you can tell us where to connect with you.
Last words is, I would say entrepreneurship is definitely more of a personal journey than it is just a business. I think entrepreneurship really tests you as an individual. It tests your determination. It tests your consistency as an individual. Also, when it comes to making money, you got to spend money to make money. And I'm not just saying on legal. You have to spend that on your systems. You have to spend that on your bookkeeping or your CPA. There's a lot that comes with investing into a business, and some people might think, entrepreneurship is the holy grail, but you're gonna have to work really, really hard to get where you want to get. And I'm a big advocate of mentorship. Get a mentor in your field that's doing exactly what you're doing, and or find someone that is doing something that you want to do and kind of emulate the things that they've done. I watch a lot of people on YouTube, but Myron Golden, he's one of the people that I listen to. Russell Brunson, when it comes to marketing, I listen to these people, and I hear the things that they've done. They weren't not an overnight success, and it takes 10 years to become an overnight success. So just because your business didn't pop off right away, and even if it does, you still have to keep doing what you were doing to get to that point, right? You have to stay consistent, because you may get a certain amount of money and just say, okay, well, I'm going to slack off. No. So that's what I would say as far as just entrepreneurship in general, and just being an entrepreneur, because I really think it's just a huge journey. And you have to be ready for that, especially if you want to grow, especially if you want to be here from 5 to 10 years from now, and you want to be a household name. You want to be known for doing good work. You want to have integrity, and you want to be the best out. And that takes a lot of time and a lot of dedication. And if you do have a 9 to 5, if you're doing something else outside of entrepreneurship, nothing beats a steady paycheck. So you do have to think about, is this the sacrifice that you want to make? Because even when I first started my business, I was still working somewhere else up until I decided to go full throttle. And that is just trusting yourself and trusting the Lord. I do believe in God, and I think that was one of the biggest things. Like, hey, I'm gonna take the leap. So you have to be prepared for that kind of sacrifice. You have to really be prepared for that kind of sacrifice. You can find me. You can type my name in on LinkedIn. You can find me on LinkedIn, connect with me there, or go to my website, isabokelaw.com. You can easily schedule a consultation with me there. That's really the first step with anything. To have a conversation with us and really get started is scheduling that consultation with us, and you'll get everything that you need. And there's a lot of value packed into that consultation. Even if you don't move forward, you'll at least have a full proposal that pretty much tells you, like, this is what I need, at least for now, from where the stage of my business is right now.
All right. I appreciate that so much, which made me think of one more question if you have time.
I'm here.
So, we have been working together a lot lately. But I want you to talk about and focus on, because everyone, I appreciate everyone, especially Black entrepreneurs getting intellectual property, filing trademarks, getting trademarks and copyrights and all of those things. But can you talk about a little bit about having to protect that trademark, and not, it's not just a piece of paper that I can put a stamp on. It's something that you have to literally fight for, probably, or protect, and you can't go without protecting it, or is there a chance of you losing it?
Yes, I mean, there's a chance of losing it. So even if you get a trademark and somebody wants the same exact trademark, they can go look at your application and see, what you provided to the USPTO. And if they go back and look at your website and or look for you online and they can't find you anywhere, they can file a cancellation of your mark. They can file a cancellation and say, I think this application should be canceled because they're not using it anymore. So that's one of the things of why you should still continue to use the mark that you get after it's registered. But also, when I talked about statute of limitations, there's not a statute of limitations when it comes to trademark law, but that's still a defensive argument when it comes to time. Well, I've been using, I know they had the trademark, but I've been using this for 5 years and they didn't say anything. Why are they saying it now? They should have been on notice, and then we were easily able to coexist in the marketplace, and they didn't do anything about it. If there was an issue, and if they had a lot of evidence that they were using it for the past 5 years, they were successful, and you guys were able to coexist, then the Trademark Trial and Appeal Board may say, well, we'll allow you guys to coexist. They can have the same mark as you, or the same or similar mark as you. So that's why monitoring is important, monitoring the USPTO, but also monitoring social media, search engines, just to see what people are doing or if people are trying to infringe, but also business databases. So we have technology to where we can see, the different businesses that have been filed in every state in the United States. So even if you see a business name that might be Barter Black LLC in Florida, you will know about it. But that comes with monitoring, and you just have to be on point with sending cease and desist letters. That's one of the things. Once you see it happening, send a cease and desist letter right away.
Thank you for that. This is not just about, oh, I'm approved. Like, there's a lot of work that comes with it. And
Yeah, which is why you should definitely be working with an attorney when you really decide to be serious. Like I said, I believe it's an investment more than anything, because yes, it's not a requirement that you use an attorney to file a trademark or to start a business or any of these things. It's not a requirement. But if you go to the website, they'll tell you, like, right away, hey, we strongly suggest that you use an attorney. And then we do have a lot of clientele that come to us for, like, office actions responses or refusals or abandonments, and they were like, yeah, I thought I was doing it right, and I looked at all these videos, and we just have to pick up the pieces and fix everything. And that's more expensive than it is if we were to file the application by ourselves, to be
yeah,
honest.
yeah, because you already have that knowledge. Well, thank you so much for this information. I really appreciate you being here. I'm happy I was able to jump on and do the interview for you. Any last words? And we're going to be out.
No, just happy New Year to everybody. I hope a lot of people tackle this year and complete their goals tenfold.
I love it. So the next Barter Black podcast will be on January the 20th, and I will be hosting again Basically, I will be hosting the people behind the scenes of the Barter Black app launch. So if you want to learn more about our speakers, about our sponsors, and all of those things, and everything that's going to be going on the app launch, definitely tune in on January the 20th, same time, same place. Thank you so much, everyone, and have a good night. And again, Happy New Year, like Liscah said.
All right. You